Welcome to Pro Audio Profiles. My name is Brendan Decora, and each week I'll be hosting different guests, mainly engineers and producers, but also people from across the industry. Enjoy. On today's show, we have Bodnar. He's an engineer, mixer, and producer who has credits with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mraz, and Belle and Sebastian. Check it out. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
This is actually the second time we're doing this, so I appreciate you doing this again with me.
Yeah, I know the questions now.
Yes, you do. Well, I switched it up,
Okay, cool.
So,
Cool.
If you could start with your backstory, kind of what led you to this.
Yeah. Like how I got started and...
Yeah, what made you want to be an engineer,
thing.
how your whole progression, all that.
Yeah, so like a lot of us, I started by playing music. I was learning guitar from like a really young age. That was kind of my main instrument. And started by, learning songs off of CDs and stuff and just getting into it.
Yeah.
Later on, I started like actually studying like classical guitar and jazz guitar like properly. I played saxophone too. Like I was just like kind of all
played
in.
sax.
Jeez. Yeah. Alto. I started on alto and I played tenor.
Okay.
And in the jazz band and the wind ensemble, like I just, I always loved music growing up. Right. And at a certain point, I just started getting into like records, like looking at the credits and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I just started thinking like, if I wanted to do this as a career, like what are the options? And I started looking at the credits and noticing like engineered by and produced by. Yeah. And if you look at enough of those, you start seeing the same names and like...
Exactly.
I was like, oh, okay, like this is interesting. Like what does that entail? And so I think it was like my sophomore or junior year of high school. Like I got into it. Like I went to Guitar Center and bought like a Korg. It was like one of the Korg standalone, like mixer, preamps, everything, like all in it.
Right.
And I bought like the Shure drum pack.
Okay.
And just like,
and
I bought.
Good choice.
And I bought Recording for Dummies.
You did.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like that, the whole that yellow book series. Yeah. I bought Recording for Dummies.
That's awesome.
And I just started, making really bad recordings and stuff that sounded not so great, and recording my friends' bands and
And where was this?
This was in Cincinnati, where I grew up, in my parents' basement.
Right.
And I had like a MySpace page for like the studio. It was horrible, but
making it happen.
Yeah. I did a few sessions down there, and just getting my feet wet and making every mistake you could possibly make, and making CDs for my friends after the session, and then being like, "Why is it so quiet?" Being like, "Oh, that's just how it is." Like, I had no idea. Recording for Dummies didn't go that far, but I shortly after that I like went off to college, and I was studying classical and jazz guitar in college, and I knew I was going to do like the school I went to had a recording arts minor.
Okay.
So I knew I was going to do that. And I think like halfway into my sophomore year, I was like, I'm not going to be a musician, because like the whole practicing for like 10 hours a day in like a dark room with no one else. And I was just like, this isn't going to work out, So after that, like I pretty much was like all in on the recording thing.
Okay.
Like I started interning. I started interning with a producer who he had come and talked to one of my classes in college, and I emailed him like the next day, like, do you need anybody? And then luckily he did, he said yes to taking me on, and that led to like the first session in a studio.
Right.
This is in Minneapolis, which it's a great music city, and has a ton of really great studios and a whole history, in and of itself, with Prince and Soul Asylum and stuff. And so that first studio experience, like I remember being like hooked. Like I was like, oh man, like
this is it.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, I could have been done with my career after that. I was like, I made it, you know. Right. But yeah, I did that, and then I interned with him for like 2 years. Just anything he had available, anytime I could get in the studio, I was there. Right. I was picking up pizza and lunch for those guys, and just. You know, he would give me little Pro Tools work to do. And like, this is when like, it was like Pro Tools 7 or Pro Tools 8, you know? Nice. Like it was still like, do you remember the old version of Pro Tools where it was like really white and it had the horrible graphics and all that? It was like, that was this era.
Nice.
And so I was just learning Pro Tools, just getting started out. I would do, anything I could just to keep it busy. At the same time, I was making records with my friends. I lived with 3 dudes and they were all in different bands.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they would rehearse downstairs. Then I would rent a bunch of gear from the school. They had like a little mobile recording setup with like, that's cool. Yeah, they had like, it wasn't too bad. It was like, they had an ADAT. So we were recording to ADAT. Of course. Yeah, in like 2009, which feels weird. It's like, why couldn't we record to a laptop? And they had like 2 of the 3124s, the APIs. So we had like 8 channels of API.
Nice.
And we had another like 8 channel, I can't remember, like maybe it was like a Sapphire or Focusrite or something. Yeah. But like it was enough to make records, you know? So we would do that on the weekends. And again, just made some really fun records, some really bad records, you know, just like trying to do as much as I could. And then at the end of my kind of time in college, I got an internship at a smaller studio. Started off doing tape transfers.
Okay.
The owner had gotten a gig from a record label who had just bought this old catalog from a gospel label in like South Carolina or something. So he was hired to do all of the transfers.
Oh, jeez.
So I was like, that was my first real gig, was like putting tape on the machine and winding it up, and just hitting play and repro and like recording into Logic or Pro Tools or whatever it was. But and then I stayed there for a while. Again, just working, making records, doing odd jobs. And then I went to the Blackbird Academy shortly after, like right when it opened, basically.
You went to Blackbird after all that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I loved Minneapolis and I loved where I was, but I just felt like I was like, I never I had classes and stuff, but they never felt like really like all encompassing as far as it didn't feel very professional. It felt like, okay, I'm getting information where I can, but I was like, if I'm really gonna do this, I was like, let me go down there. I was like, it's a 6-month program. It's not too expensive. It's at one of the best studios in the world. John McBride is just like, he's one of the most like exciting people to be around. Like, he's so passionate about audio. And I decided, I was like, if I'm going to give it a real shot, I'm going to go down there. And I was like, if I do really well, maybe I'll work at Blackbird. You know, I was like, maybe, just go down there, kill it for 6 months, and I'll have a job afterwards. That was my plan. And at the end of the 6 months, I got an offer to come to East West and intern, and I started there. And I was at East West for 6 years and did a bunch of sessions. Again, made a ton of mistakes, but did something right, apparently, because I never got fired.
Mistakes on big sessions.
I was there. Yeah, I mean, I was here for 6 years. And did not want to come to LA. But I was like, the opportunity is...
Oddly enough, I didn't want to come to LA either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I went to school at the conservatory in Arizona and lived in Colorado and was planning on going back the whole time. And gets to the point where, it's the time to figure out where you're going to intern. And during the time I was in school, my whole family had moved to California. So, like, I was looking at Colorado studios like, well, I don't even really know anyone there anymore. And do I just do that or just bite the bullet and move to LA? And I still to this day have not been back to Colorado.
Oh, really?
It's crazy.
Not even to visit?
Well, I don't know anyone. Like everyone I knew moved away. So it's like, okay, here we go.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, LA seemed really intimidating to me.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know like how secluded and small my worldview was. I didn't even know like LA had nature at all.
Oh, yeah.
Or mountains even. Yeah. Like I didn't, I got here and I'm like, wow, there's hiking trails and mountains and skiing not too far and the beach and I thought it was just concrete jungle and nothing else.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Well, even when I got to LA, like the first 2 years, like I didn't see nature.
Right.
Because I was just working all the time.
Just a small dark room.
Yeah. It's funny though. I mean, I went for a hike with a friend like in Pasadena, like Altadena, like just the other week. And I was like, man, we're right by the Angeles Crest Mountains.
Right. Yeah.
And we did this hike to this waterfall. Nice. And I was just like, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is why people move here and stay here.
Right.
It's
awesome.
just like so gorgeous.
Awesome. So one of the main things I like to talk about on the podcast is how to get good results from artists in the studio. When you're working on session, well, first off, do you do more kind of engineering, producing, mixing?
Yeah, I mean, now it's more tracking.
Okay.
It's more tracking, and I'm getting into production more.
Okay.
I do some mixing for like just some independent clients and buddies that just like I like collaborating with. But I've been producing more, which to me is like super fun.
Nice. And so when you're producing and you're first starting to work with an artist, how do you usually chat with the artist about the vision for the project?
I mean, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important things is communication and like figuring out how we're going to get on the same page, and really understanding what their vision is for the project. So, I mean, it always starts with some sort of conversation between us about like, what are we doing? Are we doing an EP? Are we doing a larger album project? Are the songs written?
Right.
Right. Do we? Yeah. I mean, what are we dealing with? Do we have demos? Like, it's different for everybody. So, also like, what's the budget? Right. Are we? Is this going to be a bedroom production, or like, are we going to have a tracking day or a tracking week, or what are we going to do? And a lot of the people I'm producing for and working with right now are smaller budgets, more independent. So. It's a lot of conversation about that because
just figuring out how to make it work. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of people, they just don't know what it costs to make a record.
Yeah.
And I think what's great about our experience is like, we've been doing this for so long is that like, we pretty much know how to make a record for any budget.
Right.
And really prioritize. I think like that's the key for a lot of projects is, okay, what do you want to do? And then after that conversation, you figure out what's really important.
Right.
Right. Do I need to bring more people on to help with the writing? Do I need to hire a band? If I do hire a band, are we going to record everybody live in the same room? How many songs are we doing? Can we get everything done in a day?
Right.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, just from a purely creative standpoint, I just like to talk about music.
Yeah.
Like what are you listening to right now that really turns you on and inspires you? Right. Do you want to make an album like that? Do you just like the sound of it, or do you like, do you like the lyrics? Do you like the harmony? What is it? And so to me, that's where a real connection between producer artist can happen, or engineer and artist can happen. And, I think that usually helps things get started off on the right foot, and then any other information you glean from that conversation, you obviously put towards the technical stuff, like preparing for the session and how many inputs do I need, what studio are we going to go to, all that stuff.
Right. That actually leads to the next question, which is, how do you usually like to set up the studio to make it feel like a creative playground for the artist?
Lots of instruments.
Okay.
Like I have, I've got a pretty good collection of instruments that I'm happy with. Like I've got you know, a Jazzmaster, a Tele, a Strat, a Les Paul.
Right.
Like, I'm a guitar player, you know?
Right.
I've got a ton of pedals, probably too many. But I like to bring all of that to the session as much as I can and as much makes sense. But, you know, any other stuff that I think can be cool, synthesizers. I've got like these little weird instruments, you know what I mean?
Right,
You know, thumb pianos and just so much of that can be really, you know, fun and exciting for an artist, you know, like they see it out of the corner of their eye. What's that? You know, and they pick it up and they're listening back and I just start playing along with stuff. And that can just be really fun for them. So I like to have stuff. I like to have little toys around, you know, just fun stuff that they've never seen before or maybe they've never experienced before, all within arm's reach. I like to have microphones set up, you know, as much as possible. Like, I didn't really pick up on this until I started here, and you start working on these pro kind of vocal sessions or songwriting sessions. It's like, you don't just have a mic up in the booth.
Yeah.
You always have either an SM7 or a 58 in the corner ready to go. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that can be really useful. I love recording the talkback. Right? Because one, you might get some really cool drum sounds.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, just like banter and stuff, it's like that stuff's so important. And I think it adds to the experience, you know? Like, you're going to be sending rough mixes to them at some point.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think, like, keeping as much of that, you know, magic in that stuff.
And how do you balance it with, like, an artist that is on a tight budget and a really strict timeline? Like, you can't really set it up for people to go crazy. It's like, well, we got to record 10 songs today. You know, we can't mess around. Like, how do you walk that line?
It's tough, man. I mean, again, it's prioritizing. And at the end of the day, you have to get stuff done. You have to really work towards that goal of whatever the project goal is.
Right.
But so much of, I think, what helps engineers get more work or the next gig is by providing the overall experience.
Yeah.
You know, like that's so much of our job is listening and communicating and like giving them the space and the space and the safety to feel, you know, free, creative, non-judgmental space. And like that to me is probably priority number one, because it's really easy, I think, to get bogged down in the technical, you know, into the sound of the kick, you know? Or what? Oh, is that compressor? Like, is that compressing too? You know, it's really easy to get bogged down in that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think literally the most important thing is that overall experience that we're giving the artist. Because not every record is going to be a hit record, right? It's not necessarily about the results, but so much of it is just letting that artist be the artist. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I've had to kind of, you know, learn this over the years, but just because you have an opinion on something as a producer or an engineer doesn't mean you need to say it. You know, it's like you might have the perfect idea, you know, but maybe the artist is working towards that, you know, and so much of it is like the obstacle, you know, and maybe they want to get there themselves. Maybe they don't want your help on everything. And that's a big part of it is like, and that's what comes back to like communication, right? Understanding who you're working with, what they want out of the experience. Do they want that obstacle? A lot of them do, you know?
Well, and it's the idea too of, you know, you may know the solution, but you skirt around it in a way to make them think that they've come up with it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It's like it's a whole different psychology behind it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, how many times do we say this? But like 90% of this job is psychology.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I remember I wasn't talking to an artist, but I was talking to like another engineer, and they were kind of complaining about something or just kind of venting, and I was like, well, why don't you do this or think about it like this? And they go, I'm not looking for an answer.
Right.
I just want somebody to listen to.
Right.
Or somebody to listen to me. And like that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
You don't always have to have the solution.
For sure.
And a lot of times you might have the right solution, but it's not the right time to bring it up.
Yes, exactly.
Like timing is 100% of it, man.
Exactly. And you mentioned you've made mistakes. All of us have made mistakes in the studio. Have you ever made a mistake that taught you a big lesson?
Yeah. Every mistake has taught me a lesson.
Of course.
But like, going back to that first internship, I remember the producer was playing drums on the record, and I was in the control room running Pro Tools.
Right.
By running Pro Tools, I mean hitting record, because that's all I knew at the time.
Exactly.
But, and then he taught me how to talk back, like where the switch was. And I just remember after one take, there was a little back and forth between me and the guys, and like I just made a bad joke.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the joke was, but I just remember like saying something that I thought was like going to be funny, and then like it was just like dead silence. I was like, oh,
crap.
Like that like you never forget that feeling. And so it just, that lesson taught me like you got to be really careful. And so, it's like,
well, people are vulnerable in the studio too. It's like they're not, unless everyone's on that kind of playful attitude, you have to watch, what you're doing.
Yeah. Because when you're in the studio, there's such a sense of focus.
Right.
I feel like, almost every good session, it's like, we're here to get something done, and everybody's focused on the own thing, right. So you don't want to draw away from that. The other one I learned from same internship, same record. We were recording strings. We were overdubbing strings, like probably a few months later at this studio, and same producer, super talented guy, playing violin.
Wow.
with the string section. Nice. Guess who's running Pro Tools? This guy. I missed the punch. And because I missed the punch, I didn't go into record.
Right.
Because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was the take. You know what I mean? It was like they do the take and they go, that was it. And talk about that feeling of like, actually, guy, oh my God.
Jeez.
Brutal.
You learn real quick about what Quick Punch does. Huh?
I know. And he told me, like, I go, I missed the punch, so I didn't hit record. And he goes, it's always in record. It's always in record. Just hit record.
Right.
And I was like,
drag it back.
Oh, yeah. That was, these are like my first times in the studio.
Right.
So I give myself grace in looking back on it. But, those are mistakes that like obviously still stick with me.
Right.
I don't forget them.
Of course. I just want to take a quick break and tell you about my free snare guide. In it, I go over all my techniques, from drum choices, microphone placement, tuning, even mixing techniques. Check it out now at brendandecora.com/huge snare. And now, back to the show. And how do you get everyone on the same page, like producers, musicians, like if everyone's kind of drifting or whatever, how do you work with collaboration and teamwork?
Ooh. Well, that's what it all comes down to, right? It's like, or I should say, there's a lot of people who make records in their bedroom by themselves.
Yeah.
But making records in a studio is like, it's all about collaboration. I was just having this conversation last night with somebody. We were talking about AI and the future of the industry. And one of the things I said was like, I really hope whatever AI brings, and I think there's a lot of good along with a lot of not so great, but I was like, the one thing that I hope it doesn't do is take away from the communicative or the community aspect of it, the collaboration, because we already have less and less of that.
Yes.
And to me, that's the beauty of it, is being in a studio, having an obstacle, and figuring out as a team how to get over it.
Right.
But to your point, or to your question, you're doing long days. There can be tense moments. There can be miscommunications. People can get in bad moods.
Right.
I think honestly, like, one of the best things you can do is take a break.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a situation where communication isn't working, or you have an artist that is just kind of, I don't want to say spinning out,
right,
but you know what I mean? They're just having a run of ideas, and they're not really finding a solution. I think one of the best things you can do is be like, hey, have we thought about lunch yet?
Right.
What are we doing for dinner? And just, it's so important, because you can really get bogged down, But a lot of times if you're working with a great artist, they're going to be like, no, I don't want to take a break.
Right.
I've done 14, 15 takes of this.
Yeah.
And I want to keep going.
I'm in the zone. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to listen to them and figure out what's going on. But, collaboration, like, problems happen, personalities happen. I think the best thing you can do is take a step back.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And when it comes to technology and evolving, tools, how has technology changing kind of adopted your workflow?
The big one is, and this software has been around for a while, but I'm kind of not super new to it, but is Keyboard Maestro.
Yeah.
Which I know you use.
Yes, I do.
Right?
Yes.
It's kind of like it's kind of an awesome thing.
Yeah.
Like, and I almost hesitate telling people about it, because it's like, I love it and it makes me look really good.
Right.
And by no means am I like a genius at it.
Right.
There's some people who make scripts
crazy.
and macros out of it that blow my mind.
Yeah.
Like the first one I saw there, I was just doing a scoring session here, and I was
the
Pro Tools engineer I was assisting came in, plugs his flash drive in, downloads Keyboard Maestro, and imports all of his stuff. And it was like, after every take, it would automatically flip to like a Google Chrome tab, and it would go to an Excel spreadsheet and just input all this information.
Jeez.
Like, what time of day the take was at, what take number it was, what instruments it was,
Dang.
like, and just other notes like, oh yeah, that was, that was more legato on bar, 83 or whatever. And I was like, huh? Like, it blew my mind. And so
I don't even know how to program something like that.
Trust me, I've tried, I've thought about it, and it, like, some macros you can go down,
right?
Yeah. I mean, for anyone listening, I guess we should explain it. Like, Keyboard Maestro is a tool where you can program certain things on the computer to be automated,
right?
And you, like, with one click of a button, it'll do 10 things in a row or all at once. And
I use it a lot for like editing samples and stuff, where like if I need to do the same string of commands 30 times, it's like, okay, do this and then repeat it 30 times, and I'm just gonna go get a coffee, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I've used it for a while, but recently I've been editing and mix prepping all of these live shows that are like an hour and 45 minutes long.
Right.
And one of the things that needs to happen is there needs to be rides on all the toms.
Okay.
And that's for an hour and 45 minute show that can really be time consuming. And programming the macro was almost as time consuming. It took me about a week to get it. And it's still like not perfect. There's still things I want to change. But one of the things I figured out or had it do was select those tracks, duplicate up a playlist, select the audio, go to Audio Suite. There's this also great plugin, the Sony Drum Gate.
Oh, yes. I use that all the time.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yes.
Like, again, belongs in this conversation of technology because that's also AI.
That's changed my workflow a lot.
It's amazing.
It's awesome.
So I tell it, Tom's. I've got a preset for it, so it actually goes to and clicks on the preset, and then it processes it. Nice. It knows when the process is done.
Right.
Okay. And then here's where it gets absolutely stupid crazy. Is it selects them again and it goes to strip silence.
Okay.
It doesn't strip it, it just breaks it up.
Okay. Right.
And then it selects every other region.
Right.
So it's not select
with audio. Yes.
Yeah. So it selects the ones, it selects the regions that don't have any audio in them, and it clip gains them all down 20 some dB.
Right.
Once it's done, this is so nuts. It selects it all again and it converts the clip gain information to automation data.
Really?
Which is a thing.
That's a thing.
Yeah, it's in the menu bar.
Oh wow.
So
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so this process used to take me, I mean, like honestly, to do the whole show and everything else, it would take me about 2 days to do everything by hand. Because then you got to go in and you got to do rides and everything. And now with that, it's gotten it down to about a little over a day.
Okay.
Like it's cut out. I still have to go through and check everything.
Right, of course.
And stuff. But like, dude, it's such a powerful tool.
Nice.
Nice. And you can use, you can use Keyboard Maestro for like, you can use it in sync with those Stream Decks.
Yeah.
You can program the Stream Deck to just hit your macro.
Yeah.
It's totally.
Yeah.
I like that stuff more than I'm more excited about that world.
Right.
And have you used SoundFlow?
Yes, I use both of them actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you use them at like the same time? Or it's like more one or the other?
It's one or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
I do some things in SoundFlow and then other things in Keyboard Maestro. Yeah. Because SoundFlow works really well with integrating into Pro Tools, like selecting this track, waiting for this prompt to finish.
Yeah.
Where Keyboard Maestro, you can do it, but it takes a little bit more finagling.
The thing I like about Keyboard Maestro, though, is like there's a big community of users.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like Pro Tools people.
Right.
Too. There's like a really awesome Facebook group for specifically Pro Tools and Keyboard Maestro
I didn't know that. You got to send me that.
I will. Because you can go in and ask a question, and you'll be like, hey, I'm trying to do this. And then a guy will literally respond like 8 hours later and like, oh, here's a script. I programmed it, take it.
It's funny. I actually used Keyboard Maestro a lot. I use Dante for my interface. And it's great, but it's you can't switch the sample rate with Pro Tools. You have to switch it manually. And so I built it's this whole process to do, switch the sample rate. You have to open each device and change the thing, and then go to the device thing. And it was like 15 or 20 button clicks just to change the sample rate. So I built this whole script and did all the stuff, and then this other friend of mine hit me up, was like, yeah, I use Dante all the time. There's a preset, like you can just save it, right? I'm like, crap. So I just hit save, and then now I just load the one I need. It's like, I went all this time.
Well, I think to your point, it's like, back to your like original question about technology is like, whatever I think you can dream up, it's almost possible. Like, it's pretty much possible.
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
Like, we're living in the future.
Yeah, it's
for
crazy.
Real.
It's crazy. So this is kind of similar to a previous question, but just about challenges and solutions. What is one of the biggest challenges that you've faced in the studio?
There's creative challenges that we've talked about, and personality challenges and just stuff that you run into in the studio. But like, I think as engineers and creatives, like we forget to take care of ourselves a lot.
Yes.
And it can be really hard when you're, on day 10 in a row in the studio, and
it's 15 hours a day.
And you're not getting outside, you're not getting regular sleep, you're dealing with creative challenges and personality. Like it can add a level of stress, that is really not healthy. Yeah. I think in the last few years, there's been a kind of a new conversation happening in our community about this. Right. Just in general, mental health and physical health. Right. Like it's all this is all tied together. Yeah. The mind and body. So it's like stepping out of the room when you need to step out of the room, doing things that, re-energize you, don't take energy away from you, taking breaks. And I don't even just mean like during the day. I mean like, taking a weekend to get out of Dodge and go see the mountains.
Go on a hike or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think for the first 2 years I was at East West, I didn't really take a vacation. Yeah. I didn't go home for Christmas because I wanted to be here so bad. You know what I mean? I didn't want to miss any opportunity to be in the studio. Right. It was, I know that anyone can call. You know what I mean? At a place like this, anyone can call at any time. Yeah. And if you're not available, if you're gone, then
you missed the opportunity.
Yeah. And it could be your favorite artist. Like that's the thing. Exactly. It could be somebody you've always dreamed about, recording, I remember my family was doing the first 3 years, my family was doing a family vacation, and they asked me to go, and I said no, because I was like, I just, I got to stay here. I got to be working, and that ended up being, I worked on A Star Is Born with that soundtrack with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. Nice. And one of the days, Elton John came in. Right. And just played piano and worked on a song with her. And I was like, me and Ben Rice, her engineer, were just like sitting there. It was us two in the control room and them two out in the live room. And we were just like pinching ourselves. Yeah. And that wouldn't have happened if I would have taken that vacation. And I'm very, very grateful I didn't. But at the same time, you got to know when to take care of yourself. Yes. Absolutely. I was working and killing myself, but it paid off. I had some amazing moments. So
wait, are you saying you should take a vacation or you shouldn't?
You should take a vacation when you need it. Okay. When you need it. But, I think that line is different for everybody. Yeah. And it's a lot easier when you're younger and you're just starting out and you're hungry. Yeah. But man, like you can't do that forever. No, exactly. Exactly. Mental health is really important. I'm a big proponent of therapy. Yeah. I tell everybody, I'm like, don't be ashamed of it. If you need to talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. Right. Even if it's for one session or two sessions, like that's a big thing. I've dealt with anxiety a lot, and being here on really important sessions with really, high profile clients and really demanding, engineers and producers. Yeah. It was really bad for my anxiety. Right. Absolutely. And so, having to, I remember going into the office and saying, hey, I need Tuesdays off. I need Tuesday mornings off from 9 to 10 because I need to get a handle on this and see somebody. Right. And that was huge, that made the biggest difference. And I think it helped everybody, it helped me, helped my coworkers because I was easier to be around. It was less stressed. Exactly. Helped the clients, helped the sessions. Absolutely. So taking care of you is a big thing.
Absolutely. Nice. Is there any current or recent projects that you can talk about that you want to?
Nothing I can talk about really. I've got a few productions that are going to come out. There's an album I'm working on that is hopefully going to come out next year, that I'm in the middle of, and then I've got a single that I produced for an artist that is going to come out in about a month, I think. Okay. Nice. But yeah, just trying to do more productions.
Right. Nice. I like to wrap up each podcast with the same kind of set of questions. The first one is, who is your most influential teacher?
There's a lot of people.
I mean, it could be a few.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be just one.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Engineer-wise and production-wise and studio stuff, Ryan Hewitt has been a big influence. Right. He's been a great friend, too. We worked on the 2 Chili Peppers records together. And, like, I just learned so much.
Right.
You know, and it was, like, that was all to tape and analog. And we were also marrying it with Pro Tools because, you know, taking safeties of everything. And it was just, you know, you don't do that type of session every day.
Right.
Where you have that both technologies going at once and all the technical issues that play into that.
Yeah.
But getting to work with him in that environment and also that band obviously was amazing. John Frusciante, I learned a ton from him because he just knows everything there is to know about recording equipment and vintage recording equipment and tape, recording to tape and the workflow of it. That was a fantastic experience.
Nice.
Other engineers, I mentioned Ben Rice before. We worked on the Gaga soundtrack together. He's been a great friend and just like a wealth of knowledge. Like he's one of those people I can ask any question to, and he's also the fastest human being ever on Pro Tools.
Right.
He's amazing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. Nice. But I'm grateful to anyone who's hired me and given me a chance and not fired me. I thank you. Awesome. I'll just go on record as saying that.
Awesome. The next question is, what is your favorite reference track if you have to go to a new studio and check out the room?
I'm ready for this one because I actually went to Vintage King last week to help a friend
do the speaker shootout. Yeah, they have their wall of speakers there.
Yeah, I went with Chad Gordon, who's been on this podcast.
Yes.
Mutual friend of ours. And we listened to so many speakers. You know? And I was like, all right, we're going to listen to the same song every time. And the one, I have a list of them, but the one that I was using is it's a Rich Costey mix. It's off of the Audio Slave record. It's called Show Me How to Live, which I think is just a killer rock mix.
Yeah.
I think that's a great one. That's kind of my go-to right now.
Right. Recorded in studio too.
Yeah. Was it mixed in 5?
I think so. I'm not 100% on that.
I know he had he was in 5 forever.
Locked out in 5 for a long time.
Yeah. Maybe it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that's my favorite right now. As a backup, my B track is a song called Quartz off of TV on the Radio's album Seeds.
Okay. Nice.
Good low end.
Nice. Last question. What would be one tidbit you have for an upcoming engineer?
I've kind of told a lot of interns this and runners this, and I stand by it. Show up on time. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Right.
Conversely, if you say you're not going to do something, don't do it. Basically, just be trustworthy.
Right.
Stick to your word. Yeah. And 3, just treat everybody well.
Right.
Everybody. You never know. The guy who's working for you today, he could blow up next week.
Yeah.
And be,
absolutely
hot shit, and you might come calling. Your phone might be not ringing, and you might need a favor.
Right.
So I say those things. I think if you show up on time, you do what you say you're going to do, and you treat everybody well, that's a really good head start.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of really talented engineers that fall short on those things.
Right.
and don't work as often as they could.
Right.
But I think if you do those 3 things, like, you're ahead of a lot of people.
Right.
Nice. It's important.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, sweet, man.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sweet. Thanks so much for checking out the show. Make sure to subscribe for all the updates, and I'll see you next week.